Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. It just dawned on me just how important self-knowledge and catching yourself and stopping yourself from self-deceiving is for being a rounded, not just a well-rounded man, but just a well-rounded adult. Not even just for yourself, but for the people in your life. You've got to make yourself as capable and strong and without fear as you possibly can. You need to work to make yourself into somebody who's really formidable. Somebody who's willing to go into the unknown and face their fears because despite of their fear, this is something that needs to be done. This needs to be sorted out in your life, and through it, you will be able to gain a sort of peace because you're finally able to accept yourself, fully, not in a everything's fine sort of way, but just in a very deep, intrinsic, settled sort of way. By capable, I don't mean manifesting your shadow in your everyday life. It's a shadow for a reason, but as long as you as long as you acknowledge it and you acknowledge you have this part of yourself, and at least make it readily accessible, allow you to just have that edge, because whatever problem you have in your life, whatever fears you have, whatever the big unknown is to you, there's always going to be another unknown after it. That's just life. Even if it's just death is the final unknown for you, and that's your ultimate fear. You're eventually going to have to face it. So this perhaps relatively small fear that you're facing this now, you're sense that you never fight the final war is what I'm trying to say. You need to manifest and develop a shadow side of yourself, or even just an edgier side to yourself, so that when things go wrong, you are fully capable of just getting on with things. If times are tough, then you're going to be the person who's going to make times easier, for at least in your small portion of the world. There's a lot of people who sort of seem to debate about what being a man is in today's world, and I'll probably make a completely separate video on it once I figured all this shit out. I wanted to have a proper good video. In a nutshell, I think it's just having the capacity to not be. I mean, you can acknowledge that you have fears. It's okay to be afraid, but it's not okay to remain in fear. As soon as possible, you need to be going out there and facing your fears. And because in facing your fears, you're going to acquire self-knowledge. You're going to figure out where you're deceiving yourself in attempting to resolve them. You might not be able to accept yourself now because you're still living in fear. You're not who you want to be. The thing about not being who you want to be is that you have an idea of who you do want to be, and that's good because you can start working towards that. Not being centered or not being able to self-accept in the short term is okay, because you might be moving from your comfortable zone to where you need to be, to your man zone or whatever, where you're on this transition to sort of growing up and being able to deal with your fear and getting outside your comfort zone in a very real way. It's not even your fears that are standing in your way. I think it's your ego as well. This part of yourself that, if you're in a comfortable zone, is it kind of it's your capacity to self-delude again. It's saying, oh, I chose to be in this comfortable zone, when it's like, did you really, or did you just settle for it because it's comfortable? The ego is sort of dysfunctional person that you believe you created. I'm not saying that we're all dysfunctional in one form or another. We all have capacities to self-deceive, but as you grow and become a more realized person and somebody who, they do what they say, or whatever the saying is, can't think right now. But as you do that, your ego gets smaller, because it realizes that holding on to things like pride or greed are just going to get in the way of what's really important. So your ego will shrink as you grow as a person, as a community symbol, whatever else you want to call it. But yeah, so your ego will hold you back and it will bullshit yourself. I think through being more mindful and doing stuff such as meditation or keeping a journal or stuff, you get better at just seeing through when you're bullshitting yourself. You start catching yourself, and when you start catching yourself, I think that's half the battle. Was it say first step to solving the problem is acknowledging that you have a problem. It's not going to be an easy journey. But then if it was an easy journey, everybody would do it. You know, we wouldn't have the masculinity crisis on our hands, or so I'm told. So it's, you know, it is going to be hard. You're going to have to diminish your ego, which can be scary because don't have ego sort of all you've got. It's just me, 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 me. And when you start getting away from that mindset, completely change yourself from a very centered worldview to a sort of third person worldview where you're able to look down on yourself and sort of be able to just be like, what the fuck's he doing? What the fuck's he doing? He should do this. And then you just sort of just change it like you're in The Sims or something. Like that's where I think you need to get to, where you're just able to have such self-knowledge and control and the ability to just overcome your fears in a very, I'm afraid, I can acknowledge that I'm afraid, or I understand I'm afraid, but I'm not going to acknowledge it, and I'm not going to throw fuel in that particular fire, sort of thing. So I think, yeah, it's just, you can either stay in your comfort zone forever. I mean, there's no real incentive for people to grow up nowadays, especially when like you can just play video games till you're 50 before getting your shit together. There's so little pressure, and there's not really any people who are willing to help you out because they themselves haven't got mentors. Yeah, it's just there's no mentors to help people with all of this shit. So it is that much harder because you need to be your own mentor to a certain extent. You know, especially if not people in your area. You know, there may be people online, but you know it's always that much harder because they're not there per person to actually call you out in the moment when you're messing up. So it is hard, and you need to be very self-disciplined and just be committed. Even when you think that you are committed, you find that you're not really committed, not yet, you know. But if you go outside your comfort zone and you listen to what people are telling you is potentially wrong with you, like just ask your friends just where you're tripping up. I think that's pretty much all I can really say. Those are the two big things that you've got to do. You've just got to figure out where your comfort zone is and keep going outside it, keep going over your edge. I mean, you'll discover yourself things about like cold approaches. Like I'm definitely going to do a video on this because this is what started me down this train of thought last night. I came to very good insights. We're going to make a different video about that. But just, it's, you know, girls shouldn't be the center of your life. You know, they're a very important part, but especially for a young man, you should be working on, you know, building yourself up so that then you can attract the girls. You know, you need to make yourself into a high value man, a high value product. You need to, I don't know, you have a secure job. You need to have a trade or a worthwhile degree. You need to have your finances in order. You need to be relatively in shape. Like, you don't need to be Arnold, but just as long as you're relatively lean, you know, I think a six-pack's probably enough. The point is, as a young man, you should be trying to overcome your fear of cold approaches. You should be doing cold approaches, not for the purpose of getting numbers. Like, that's way, way off. We need to slow the fuck down. The point is, just because you're scared of it, when you go out and you do things specifically because you're scared of them, then that's going to build character. That's going to build you into a very formidable person. You know, somebody who just, fear's not even a question anymore. You go in and do things specifically because you're afraid of them. Who does that? Who does that? So that's going to make you into a very powerful person. That's going to make you into a very attractive man. You know, at least that's my understanding of it as a naive 21-year-old. But yeah, it makes sense, and it definitely, I feel a lot better working through this stuff now. Even though there's some days when it's just, you know, you're still scared of doing some stuff, and you get annoyed when perhaps when you don't follow through with what you want to do. But it feels a lot better than just staying in your comfort zone. You know, you've swum in the ocean, and there's no going back to the kiddie pool. Hopefully, this wasn't too all over the place. There was just a few things on my mind that I had to sort of get out there. I'll make some more specific videos about it once I've fully articulated these thoughts. But yeah, just hope you enjoyed, hope you got something out of it. Until next time, just keep growing.